Dia good, everybody. A very good evening and Fulcher, South Africa. And when you look here at the lovely slide, you can see that South Africa is a world in one country. As the Archbishop Desmond Tutu used to call us, we are indeed a rainbow nation. All colors, all creeds, and all kinds of sceneries. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to, once you are coming with us, hopefully I will be your guide and at the airport waiting for you. Next slide. Sorry, the slide is not wanting to go here. There we are. So I'm waiting for you at the airport with a sign so that you won't get lost. And the moment that we have introduced you to Cape Town, then we will be taking you to our bus. We have very capable bus drivers. Mega Coach will be assisting us. And then we start the tour of Cape Town. And this is a wonderful aerial view of Cape Town. Of course, the majestic Table Mountain in the back and the beautiful Greenpoint Stadium, football stadium in the front. And without further ado, we'll take you up Table Mountain. Here we are. This is the cable car. It takes you over 1,000 meters exactly within 4 minutes, and it rotates fully 360 degrees. At the end of our Cape Town tour, for the next few days, we are sleeping in a beautiful hotel. It is the President Hotel in Cape Town. It is actually in the suburb of Bantry Bay. Yes, I understand you have a Bantry Bay too in Ireland, and the views over the ocean are absolutely beautiful, and the pool is something to behold, and sunset every evening gets celebrated with the obligatory gin and tonic. This is a few impressions of Table Mountain. Sometimes it can be very misty too, that is when low-hanging cloud is there. Other days beautiful sunny. And will you believe me when I tell you that Table Mountain is not flat at all at the top? That is a lovely view of Sea Point, the suburb where we will be staying at, and myself with the background of Robben Island, which of course will be also one of our excursions on your trip to South Africa. Another view of the cable car zooming into Table Mountain. And then, of course, all of a sudden the clouds can come in, and then you are just literally above the clouds overseeing the city of Cape Town. Last view of Table Mountain, leading all the way to the Cape of Good Hope. And then, of course, the next day we'll do the winelands. Winelands are very important in South Africa too. We have some beautiful wines. South Africans are well known for their lovely white wines. We do Cabernets, we do a lot of good Chardonnays, but also we have fantastic red wines. And of course, we'll introduce you to those. So these are the beautiful winelands at the foot of the Simonsberg. There behind you also, once again, Simonsberg near Stellenbosch. And of course, we also visit the picturesque towns of Franschhoek with the Huguenot Memorial to the left, dedicated to the Huguenots who had to flee France via Europe to get to South Africa. And then, of course, on the right-hand side, see this beautiful artwork at the town of Franschhoek. Yes, Nelson Mandela is always very prevalent in South African history. Here we are in front of the town hall of Stellenbosch, and we see the 3D imposed visual of Nelson Mandela, and of course the places where he was incarcerated in the Cape. And this is Middelvlei. This is a fantastic alternative wine estate where we go, and not only will we do wine tasting, but at times we also do wine blending, and then you make your own wine, and that leads to a jolly lot of fun. Cape of Good Hope, folks, is the third day. That will be the peninsula tour, and that will bring us to the southwesternmost part of South Africa. There it says the most southwestern point of the African continent. It also gives you the coordinates, and not often do we see this sign unoccupied Most of the time we have lots of happy groups posing behind it and all wanting to have a photographic momentum of where they were at the southwesternmost point of Africa. There we are. It's another good view. There's some animals too at Cape of Good Hope. This is an eland or an oryx, as it is also well known. And behind me is a visual of Cape Maclear. Part of the peninsular tour is a visit to Boulders Beach, where we have the African penguins. Sadly, penguins are under threat, but we still have quite a large colony here at Boulders Beach, and of course we will be visiting them. Here he is, he's looking not quite happy. They're only 30 centimeters tall, and they bray like what they call a jackass. This is the boomslang, or it is actually a path that leads you to the top of the canopies at the trees, part of Kirstenbosch, South African National Botanical Institute. And we will be visiting that. It's one of the most beautiful botanical gardens in South Africa. Look at the lovely proteas blossoming in front of us here. And the pathways, they are absolutely magnificent. It's always such a pleasure to take you through Kirstenbosch. There we are, waving us all goodbye at the boomslang or tree snake. You thought that the food in South Africa, do we have good food? Look at this. We spend a lot of time producing absolute beautiful breakfasts, and you find that meals in South Africa are exceptionally reasonably priced. And this is of course day 4, when we are then leaving the Victoria and Alfred waterfront with its iconic Table Mountain as a backdrop, and that is still a working harbour. And then we will be going to Robben Island. Here it is, the island of incarceration. Robben Island is of course a South African cultural heritage site, but also a world heritage site. It is 4 by 2 kilometers, and daily we have 4 tours leading you from Cape Town, 11 kilometers by boat, by ferry, to Robben Island, where you will be guided. So it's a most humbling experience, and many people are reflecting back on those prisoners, often also political prisoners, lepers, that only saw Cape Town from 11 kilometers further. No person had ever fled Robben Island. There is the second oldest lighthouse based at Robben Island. And sometimes we see whales, dolphins, orcas, and of course the captain will bed at night and stop for us while we enjoy the viewings. There he is. Lovely humpbacks. Yes, yay! There we are. And that leads us to the town of Arniston, which is now about 3 hours away from Cape Town. Arniston is close to the southernmost point of the African continent. And here we see the picture of the hotel, which is really just at the beach. It's a fantastic site, lovely to swim. And there we are, the beaches of Arniston. Sometimes the water is a bit cool. You are, after all, at 34 degrees south latitude. And then this is the historical village of Cassies Bay. And we often go and have a meal with the fishermen in their living room. It's a fantastic experience. This is the lighthouse of Cape Agulhas, and this is the southernmost point of Africa. We are now where the division is of the Atlantic and the Indian Oceans. There we see a large maquette of the continent of Africa, and it also tells us a lot about the southernmost tip. It also tells us a lot about the shipwrecks that we found there. It's a very desolate part, and yes, it's wonderful to go there. Not only you as groups will come here, but we had some very famous visitors. I was understood that once we visited with the travel department Ronnie's sex shop. Yes, we are going to Ronnie's sex shop. We also came across a very well-known Irish person. His name is Francis Brennan, and he was filming for the Grand Tour that apparently was broadcast in 2019, I think. Here he is, Francis, meeting the group. We were all, I didn't quite know him, but the group was most impressed. And then, of course, we will also be staying in the beautiful town of Knysna. You write it with a K, but you don't say it. And this is the Hotel, the Moorings. Fantastic swimming pool, big, big hotel rooms. And this is the visual of the town of Knysna, which I also proudly call my hometown. You'll see the estuary in front of us here. And this is where the heads are, and it is here where the Indian Ocean leads into the estuary of the town of Knysna. Very beautiful rockery there, and that you will see when you visit the Featherbed Eco Experience or the Eco Excursion. It's a wonderful walk all along foresty paths, and that will lead us along the most beautiful site, and flowers blossom there too. Here we come across the daisies, and of course also the feigjes, or little sour figs as we call them. And that is a pincushion protea that we can come across, and some of the indigenous plantation figs. Sometimes we see also some heaths, and in the evening, folks, we do always have a habit in South Africa that we help the sunset. And we do that most often with a lovely sundowner, and that can either be a nice glass of champagne, or perhaps you'll enjoy a cool drink while seeing the sunset. These are the heads of Knysna. You can see how extremely difficult it had been for the sailors to come into the town of Knysna. Very strong currents. This is myself at the caves, and that is the restaurant at the Featherbed where we do the eco excursion. And those are your guides. Yes, I sometimes also freelance as a guide for the Featherbed excursion. And then, of course, the next day we'll be off to the town of Port Elizabeth, but not without viewing how we bungee jump in South Africa. Look at this. These were guests of ours. They were honeymooners, and they did 216 meters. They jumped down, all strings attached. And then, of course, we also go and visit the Tsitsikamma National Park, most fantastic rockery. We often see whales, and also, of course, the lovely oyster catcher, which was almost extinct, but it's back now. These are the views from the Tsitsikamma. Isn't it just absolutely fantastic? And this is where the rivers flow through the Tsitsikamma National Park into the Indian Ocean, with the suspension bridge in front of us as foreground. There we are, the walking paths to the suspension bridge, and there they are, the two bridges, and it's a fantastic walk before we have a lovely lunch on the rocks. There's more of the suspension bridges. And then, of course, that evening we will be staying over in South Africa's 5th largest town, the town of Port Elizabeth, the Windy City, also known as Kariega. And it is our own Detroit. It's where the automotive industry is. But of course, we will take you right up to the Donkin Reserve, from where we have a beautiful view over the harbor and the Indian Ocean. And of course, the pyramid with the sad story of Elizabeth Donkin and the beautiful mosaics that depict the town of PE. On the right-hand side, you see the pier of Boulders Beach. And the hotel itself has got fantastic views over the ocean as well. We're right at the seafront. And then the next day, that is where it starts, folks. The last 3 days we will be spending in the Eastern Cape, namely at Kariega Nature Reserve. It's a private game reserve where we will be able to see at least 4 of the big 5. We will be viewing here at the viewing deck, and that is where the bar and restaurants are, and surrounded there are our chalets. So you have always a lovely view over the valley below. Well, that is Kariega. I hope we have enticed you to come to Kariega and to come to and experience the bush, because what you saw there is literally true. And I'm very fortunate that in the next 2 weeks we have another departure of a travel department group. And yes, we will be once again staying at Kariega. And sometimes our stay was fantastic and marred by such a thing as lockdown. And this happened in 2020 when our group learned that the next day that the entire world was going into lockdown, but it also happened to be the 17th of March. So what did we do at Kariega? You guessed it. We had an amazing St. Patrick's celebration just before the whole world had to go into lockdown. Everybody flew back home the next day safely, albeit a little bit, feeling a little bit under the weather, but what a fantastic experience we had. The sunsets truly are also magnificent at Kariega. And yeah, the elephant population there are something different to other game reserves, as the elephants at Kariega are far more relaxed, larger families, and they allow us in the vehicles to come slightly closer than what you normally are used to. And sometimes it almost feels as if you can touch them. You can see the little ones frolicking with their parents. It's absolutely fantastic. Here we have such a view that we are close to the elephant. This is what our, here we are. And then, of course, nothing is better than after a long morning game viewing in the bush. Instead of going back to the lodge, we have a breakfast in the bush that will be cooked for us by the staff at Kariega. We will have bacon and eggs and lovely rolls and yogurts and fruits. And it's not opulent, but absolutely fantastic to start your morning after a long day game viewing, sitting outside in the open air and just enjoying a good meal. And this is how close we are coming towards lions as well. Kariega has got a healthy lion population. This is one of their females, and Braden, the ranger, is telling us what we should do. We should always stay quiet and calm and seated when we are in a sensitive sighting, such as viewing walking lions. And there they are with their cubs. This is the old male. The old male lion has now been dethroned by his younger offspring, and he is now ruling the roost. So this dear old chap is sort of licking his wounds away from the pride while he watches the younger male taking male main position now. There they have Auntie's beautiful lions. They are looking so healthy and the sun falling on them. Yeah, these are the kind of photos we are able to take at Kariega. These are all 3 females. And there he comes, the younger male. Stunning example.
I think this is the same female that we saw this morning, guys. The one that was by herself.
There we are, some more female lions. Yes, at Kariega they also have, of course, rhinoceros. I included a picture of a rhinoceros that is not been dehorned, but everybody is aware of the poaching of rhino horn by poachers that's going to be sold in the Far East. And that is why rhinos have been under threat now for a few years. That's why we find that most rhinos are dehorned as to keep the population intact. so that poachers walk away from these rhinos. But this is a typical example of a black rhino, which we also can find at Kariega, with both its horns still intact. Next to it is, of course, the warthog. Then we have, that is another part of the Big Five. This is the Cape buffalo, also found extensively at Kariega. Here we see him beautifully in the morning sun. And if you have all the males, then their base is looking far more prominent. Their faces are a bit more battered. They have fought a lot. And that is why these marked heads of these old males are fantastic to view. This is an unusual animal. You may not have seen it before. It is an antelope. It is called the nyala. And it is very prevalent at Kariega. We see the lovely Albany bushes behind us in Kariega. And yeah, this is where the nyalas come across. They are having sort of a standoff, these two males, by slowly moving towards each other in almost a silent dance. On the left-hand side, impalas, the McDonald of South Africa. They are the most prevalent antelopes, the smaller ones, and we see them often in every game reserve. On the right-hand side, some young kudus. Kudus, the South African symbol of South African national parks. On the left-hand side is a dassie, or a rock hyrax. We see them a lot in the Eastern Cape. They are related to the elephant, will you believe that? And yeah, they live mostly on rocky outcrops and pop up when the sun is shining. And on the right-hand side, folks, yes, you guessed it, that is snow. We can have cold weather and snow in South Africa. And I particularly always warn guests that are coming to Kariega, for example, and do the early morning and late evening game drives, that you definitely do need some warm clothes like beanies and hats and scarves, because it can get cold also in South Africa. And yeah, the giraffe, we have the reticulated giraffe in South Africa. Lovely example of how he has to bend down to drink water, and it's where he is at his most vulnerable. And on the right-hand side, this male chap is looking at me. Yes, how do I know it's a male? Because its horns are pretty much worn down. And there we have a few females under a lovely acacia tree. Isn't that just a picture of Africa? And there we see a male and female just sort of nuzzling one another, both also giraffes. And this leads us to the end of our presentation. Then this is, yeah, a bit of a vision of what you can come across when you come to South Africa. I would like to say to you all is slang lief, gore mataga, and hope to see you in South Africa soon. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Gertie. That was brilliant.